Hello friends, today we're going to be looking at our study guide for our expressions and equations summative, which is happening on Wednesday next week. So I just kind of want to walk through kind of my expectations for what's supposed to happen. So on question 1 it says, which expression is equal to 6 to the 4th power? And then it says, explain how you know. Well, I know that 6 to the 4th power is the same thing as saying 6 times 6 times 6 times 6. So 6 times 6 is, not 10, right? 6 times 6 is 36, so that's more than 24. It does not mean 4 to the 6th power, because 4 to the 6th power means 4 times itself 6 times, but it does look like D. Now, why do I know that? Explain how you know. So, a number, so 6 raised to the 4th power means you multiply 6 by itself 4 times. So just giving me the answer is only going to earn you half credit, so you need to be able to explain, what this means, what an exponent means. So that's how you solve number 1. On number 2, it says select all equations where x equals 3 is the solution by proving it using the equation. So I'm going to start with A. I'm going to plug 3 in for where x is. 3 minus 3 is 0. That is true. So I'm going to select that. 1 plus 3 equals 4. It does not equal 2, so that does not work. 9 minus 3 equals 6, not 3. That doesn't work. 2 times 3 does equal 6, so this one works. 1/5, 1 over 5 times 3 equals 3 over 5, which is not 3. And then 3 squared equals 9. So you should have A, D, and F circled. So that's all you need to do for number 2. Number 3 says, which expression is equivalent to 20c minus 8d? How could you factor this equation? So that's kind of like me providing you with kind of what you need to do and explain the process. So explain the process again, so we have to be able to look. So I can factor out a 2, so this would be 2, factor that out would mean I would divide this by 2. I would divide this by 2, so 20 divided by 2 is 10c. Minus 4d. Notice here it looks the same except for the sign has changed, so that's not going to be what we do, right? I can also factor out a 4, right? So I can factor out a 4, so if I put a 4 out here, 4 goes into 20 5 times, so that's 5c, minus 4 goes into 8 2 times, so that's 2d. So this one works. And I see that one, this one does not work because that's an 8, right? This one works, so C works. And it says which expression, so I know that that's 1, because if I do C times D, that's 8CD, and you don't have a CD, or you don't have an 8CD in your problem, so C is the one that you're looking for. Now we got to explain this process. So when I factor, when a number, when an expression, I have to change my wording, when an expression is factored, you divide the numbers by the number factored out. The number factored out goes on the outside of the parentheses. Okay, so I factored out a number, right? Factored out a 2 that goes outside the parentheses, and then I divide by that number on the inside. So when an expression is factored, you divide the numbers by the number factored out. The number factored out goes on the outside of the parentheses. Goes on the outside of the parentheses. Right? So that's kind of the process for that. Then looking at 4, here's an expression 3 times 2 to a power of t. Explain the order of how you solve the problem when t is given. So the first one says evaluate the expression when t is 1. So I'm going to write 3 times 2 to the first power. And looking at this expression, right, I know that I need to evaluate exponents first. So this is 2. 3 times 2 is 6. So it says explain the order. Exponents must be solved first according to order of operations. Then you multiply 3 by the evaluated exponent. So exponents must be solved first according to order of operations, then you multiply 3 by the evaluated exponent. So now the expression when t is 4, that's 2 to the 4th power. So again, it's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. That's 4 times 2. That's 8 times 2. That's 16. So we have 3 times 16. 16 times 3, 24. No, wait, 6, 12, 18. 3, 4, 48. I was trying to do some quick math there. So this expression would equal 48. And again, understanding that exponents must be solved first according to order of operations, and you multiply 3 by the evaluated exponent. I expect you to be able to tell me in both equations what you need to do first. And looking at this problem, 2/9 of the students in a school are in 6th grade. For each question, you'll need to be able to describe how you arrived at your answer, be clear in your writing. So how many 6th graders are there if the school has 90 students? Well, I know 2/9 of the students, so of means multiply, of 90 equals 6th grade students. Okay, so we're going to do 90 times 2, which is 180 divided by 9. 180 divided by 9, 9 goes into 18 twice, so that's going to be 20 students. Okay, and then it says for each question you'll need to be able to describe how you arrived at your answer. I multiplied 2/9 by 90 students to find how many 6th grade students are in the school. How many 6th graders are there if the school has 27 students? So now I'm going to take 2/9 times 27, right? That's going to be 27 over 1 equals 6th grade students. So 27 times 2, that is 14, 54, so that's 54 over 9. 9 goes into 54 6 times, so 6th grade students. And for this problem, I multiplied 2/9 by 27 to find out how many 6th grade students there are. So now if the school has X students, write an expression for the number of 6th graders in terms of X. So I know 2/9 times X equals 6th grade students. because notice that followed a pattern. I've done 2/9. This one I don't know, so let's just, can you use a variable now to find how many sixth grade students there are? Then how many students are in the school if 42 of them are sixth graders? So now it's taking this expression we just wrote, we do not know how many people are in the school, equals 42. Now this one I really want us to be able to explain what happens here. Right, so currently 2/9 is being multiplied by x, so I want to divide by 2/9 on both sides. So 42 divided by 2/9. I'm going to place a 1 under 42. And now this is dividing fractions, so what I want to use is I want to use keep flip change. And so now we're going to take 42 times 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 36, 37. 378 divided by 2, so now we're going to evaluate that. 378 divided by 2. 2 goes into 3 one time. 2 goes into 17 8 times. 2 goes into 18 9 times. So there's 189 students. So you need to be able to write an equation and then show how you solve for the equation. You can't just, do whatever you want. So this shows the balance of what needs to happen in this equation. Jada makes sparkling juice by mixing 2 cups of sparkling water with every 3 cups of apple juice. So I know it's 2 cups, and I'm going to write this as S, as sparkling water, for 3 cups of juice. So how much sparkling water does Jada need if she uses 15 cups of apple juice? So I know that this is 2S, 3 juice. So if I change this to 15 juice, right, what's happening between 3 and 15? Well, 3 is being multiplied by 5, so 2 times 5 would be 10. So Jada will need 10 cups of sparkling water. How much apple juice does Jada need if she uses 2 cups of sparkling water? So again, going back to that relationship. So this one I'm going to put 6. What's happening here? It's times 3. So then times 3, that'd be 9. So Jada needs 9 cups of apple juice. Plot these pairs of measures as points on the graph. So on this one, we know the constant relationship is 2 cups of sparkling water. So like this is our relationship for 3 cups of apple juice. Then we plot it 10, right? So on this problem, we're plotting 10 cups of sparkling water. Well, we need to find juice first. Juice is 15, so I'm going to go over 15 and 10. And then I'm going to go over to 9, which is here, up to 6. Right? So you should be able to see that that's going to be a proportional relationship, right? Because there's a constant. So now we're going to ask ourselves, now it's going to ask us to write an equation. Let S represent the number of cups of sparkling water and J represent the number of cups of apple juice. Write an equation that shows how S and J are related. Additionally, you should be able to explain the graph. So I know right here this is 3, 2. So what happens when this is 1? If I divide that right to 1, that means if I go back to this understanding of 2S and 3J, if now I say 1S, that would be divide this by 2, so that would be 1.5. So where this is 1, So that'd be about right there. So juice would be this, S would be that, so I want so when I write this equation, I want write an equation that shows how S and J are related. So juice equals 1.5 times S, because S is my 1 in this example, so S is going to be what I can find out to get juice for this problem. If I were to pull up a point and say, if I want to explain this graph says, the best way to do that is explain a point. 3, 2. This graph shows the relationship between juice and sparkling water. So this graph shows the relationship between juice and sparkling, shows the relationship between the juice and sparkling water needed to make sparkling juice. Right? And so that's all we need to be able to do for that. And then our last question says, or our last two questions, Mai poured 2 6/10 liters of water into a partially filled pitcher. The pitcher then contained 2.10 4/10 liters. Which diagram A, B, or C represents the situation Y? Well, I know that this should be the total. The total amount in it says it's supposed to be 10 4/10. So the only one that makes sense is B, right? Because that represents the total amount in the actual pitcher. Write an equation that represents the situation. So I could say X plus 2 6/10 equals 10 4/10. Solve the equation you wrote. So if I write this, I want to actually solve. So I'm going to subtract 2 6/10 from this side and 2 6/10 from that side. 8, 7 8/10. Explain what the solution to the equation means. 7 8/10 represents how much water was in the pitcher before 2 6/10 were added. Okay. And then down here, you should be able to explain with words how to solve the problems. So for one right here, subtract 5 from both sides. X would equal 3. Divide 25 by 5 on both sides. X would be 5, would equal 5. Divide 4 divide 4 on both sides. X would equal 6. add 100 to both sides. X would equal 154. And then take the square root of both sides. X would equal 7. Right? So that's how you solve these problems.